If someone randomly came up to you and asked the question, name me a famous motor race, other than thinking, why has a random person asked me such an out of the ordinary question, the first thing that comes into your head is quite possibly the Le Mans 24 Hours. This year the race will be run for the 89th time, with the first iteration of the race being held in 1923. Its history and stature as one of racing's greatest challenges remains undeniable, and while some things have changed since then, motorsport fans in more normal times congregate in their masses to the Circuit de la Sarthe to cheer on their favourite teams, drivers and manufacturers. However, whilst it is a race that most people have at least heard, several might never have seen the event and therefore won't have the best idea of what to expect, and that is where hopefully this video will make things that bit easier to understand and learn, so that if you do watch this race, you won't be in a minefield of confusion and amusement. Or, by the end of this 20-minute or so video, it would have made no difference whatsoever and you were left in the same debacle as before. Either way, let's get on with it, beginning with a lap of the track. So let's take a lap of the Circuit de la Sarthe, or Le Mans if you just want to be a bit more simple. Going over the start-finish line, you have enough time to just about think of what you need to do for turn 1. This very fast, long, open section deceives you, because whilst this bit is flat out, you then have to brake hard in a very bumpy braking zone which can easily catch your car out. Going through the tight left and right handers, you then go over the crest, under the Dunlop Bridge, and into easy, flat, left and right corners. Going into a fairly heavy braking zone, third gear for this left-hander, and then over the crest again. Do not touch the curbs, they are horrible, and do not go on the grass like I did just then on the lap. And then it's another fast right-hander, and then you really do have quite a lot of time to think. In fact, quite a lot of thinking, although, you know what, let's just speed up this straight because nothing really happens on this bit, and there is quite a lot of it. But you do brake very sharply as the Mulsanne straight has got a couple of chicanes. I did about 80s or 90s to try and slow the speeds down, and it does so fairly successfully. Another long straight. Let's not get into the doldrums of this, we know what a straight looks like. And we have another braking zone, and instead of going right for the first chicane, you then go left and then right. And back onto the straight again. There is a slight kink in this part of the straight, but it's not a corner, trust me. And it's another, you know, whatever, just skip this 5 seconds bit, and there you go. And we're back straight to a very heavy braking zone this time, not a chicane, it's a very tight and heavy braking zone into a 90-degree right-hander. And yep, you've guessed it, it's another long straight. There's a few kinks in it, but who cares? Anyway, and then we come to the Indianapolis corner, one of the most famous corners of, well, any racetrack really, but it's a very fearsome one, and that's why it gets its reputation for being quite nasty. A tight left-hander then follows a even tighter right-hand bend, and here's another straight. Yep, it's another one. There's quite a lot of them. But this is the last one, so you'll be glad to know that those bits have been skipped out. We then come into an even more famous part of the track, the Porsche curbs, which are, as you probably guessed, curbs. Yeah. Anyway, these are really excellent corners to drive in cars with downforce because they are so rewarding. After 2 left-handers, it's an extremely long right-hander, and then you're swiftly followed by another long left-hander, 2 slight kinks, right and then left, and then the final meaningful corners on this track are 2 mini chicanes that are intertwined with one another, which means they're quite nasty. In real life the curbs are much heavier than that, but Project Cars gives you those curbs, which are actually a lot nicer, but let's ignore that. Anyway, time to move on to the car classes. So this will be the first year of the new Premier category at Le Mans, as the Hypercars start what could be a glorious new era of endurance racing. Whilst these cars are slower than the predecessor class of LMP1, they aren't exactly slow by any stretch of the imagination. With around 600 to 670 brake horsepower, the cars will be more than capable of reaching to a demise now on those many straights. With it being a new category, a few teething problems have been experienced by all of the teams, which leaves it wide open for who could take the overall honours at Le Mans. Plus, who knows, we could have an overall winner from the class below. So that is making teams in the LMP2 class very excited. Whilst LMP2 has almost become a category full of one constructor. With 25 entries entered into this race, it is the most popular category in this year's Le Mans and has always provided plenty of drama in recent years. And although this does sound somewhat of a cliche, it looks like this might be one of the most competitive fields the category has had. There is also a separate category within LMP2 called LMP2 ProAm. They can still compete for overall honours in the LMP2 class, but the ProAm field will have their own separate race, if you will. This is the first of the Grand Touring classes, where the cars resemble, in a vague sense of the word, the sports cars that people buy. Although this class has lost some of the manufacturer interest of the last few years, it doesn't mean it will be any less exciting with 8 cars, all of which have a good chance at winning the class, as the driver lineup on the most part is all pro. I'll go over that last bit when we actually get to talk about those who are competing later on. If the previous category was called GTE Pro, you probably get an idea of what this category entails. The driver lineups are not completely amateur, it's more a case of one gentleman / bronze driver joins together with 2 pro drivers to field an entry into the class. The cars are technically exactly the same as the GTE Pro cars, perhaps slightly older, but only by a year or two on the GTE Pro efforts fielded by the manufacturers themselves, but technically they are identical. Unlike LMP2 ProAm, GTE Am does not compete for honours in GTE Pro, or GTE overall, for a matter of fact. Now though, it's time to get on to who will be taking part in one of racing's biggest tests. We will begin with the Hypercar class and Toyota Gazoo Racing. After several years of tumultuous pain, heartbreak, anguish and agony trying to win this race, the curse was broken in 2018 and they have won the next 2 since then, and whilst you could argue they were won without stiff competition, a win is still a win, and Toyota will be hoping reliability is on their side for Mike Conway, Murray Kobayashi and Jose Maria Lopez in Car 7, and Sebastian Buemi, Kazuki Nakajima and Brendan Hartley, who most people seem to forget was an F1 driver, in Car 8. A team co-owned by a Hollywood film director will be hoping for a blockbuster debut in the 24 hours. Should I be sorry about that joke? I'm not sure. Unlike Toyota, they don't have any hybrid power, however both teams have struggled in terms of reliability all season, with Monza particularly proving troublesome for both. The drivers for Glickenhaus, Pipo Derani, Frank Malieu and Olivier Plat in Car 708, and Ryan Briscoe, Romain Dumas and Richard Westbrook in Car 709 will be keeping their fingers and toes crossed for quite a while potentially. Alpine are the only team using a grandfathered LMP1 car, and whilst the car in motorsport terms is from the Neolithic period, it doesn't mean it's not got any hope of winning. Ahead of a potential manufacturer-backed hypercar effort in 2023, Nicolas Lapierre, Andre Negrão and Mathieu Vachivier will be doing their utmost to try and give Alpine even more reasons to make the potential a reality. Even though it seems like it already is happening, but never mind. On to LMP2 now, and we will begin with the Zak Brown co-owned United Autosports team, whose racing portfolio seems to be growing by the second. Either way, the team will field 3 cars, one under the US side of the team. Felipe Albuquerque, Philip Hansen and Fabio Scherer make up Car 22. Wayne Boyd, Alex Lynn and professional F1 Skypad analyzer Paul Di Resta make up Car 23, and Jonathan Aberdeen, Nico Jamin and Manuel Maldonado make up Car 32. Since the team formed in 2000, fielding a Honda Integra in the Spa and Nürburgring 24 hours, they have been mainstays of endurance racing since then. The team will be hoping that the strong driver lineups of Tom Blomqvist, Sean Gelael and Stoffel van Dorn in Car 28, and Antonio Felix da Costa, Roberto Gonzalez and fellow professional F1 Skypad analyzer Anthony Davidson will give them a good shot at the LMP2 win, although perhaps you might find the battle of the F1 Skypad analyzers more captivating. WRT are a team more renowned for GT3 racing. However, with WRT going the hypercar ranks as a customer team in a couple of years with Audi, they're doing a couple of years in LMP2 to get themselves more accustomed to this sort of car. Robin Freins, Ferdinand von Habsburg and Charles Mallacy make up Car 31, whilst Car 41 is piloted by Louis Delatraz, Yiffy Ye and Robert Kubica. Risi are known for fielding Ferraris in the GT classes, but will return to the prototype ranks in LMP2 with Ryan Cullen, Oliver Jarvis and Felipe Nasr in Car 82. In this all-female lineup, Tatiana Calderon, Sophia Flörsch and Beitske Visser will be hoping for a solid performance in the Oreca ran by stalwarts of the Le Mans 24 Hours, Signature. G-Drive Racing will be fielding 2 entries, one of which will be coming to a bit later. However, Car 26 will be driven by Franco Colapinto, Roman Rusinov and the recently crowned Formula E champion, Nick de Vries. What a great way of coming off of your Formula E title and getting back into racing, eh? Like G-Drive, EDEC will be fielding 2 LMP2 entries in the separate classes. Paul-Luc Chatin, Paul Lafargue and GT regular Patrick Pilet will drive Car 48. Since their beginning in 2014, Duquin have been manufacturers of LMP3 cars, but are utilising an Oreca, like quite a lot of others in LMP2, for Le Mans. René Binder, Tristan Gomendy and Memo Rojas will be behind the wheel. Since switching to the Oreca, the form of the team has improved. Alex Brundle, Jakob Smikowski and Renger van der Zande will pilot the 34 car, to what they hope will give the baking firm their first win in LMP2 machinery. Having come off a win in the recent European Le Mans Series round at Monza, Olivier Panis' Oreca will be sporting an art car livery designed by Laurent Minguet, with paintings of the cars also being sold so that profits will go to the Mécénat Chirurgie Cardiaque, a charity that supports children's cardiac care. James Allen, Julian Canal and Will Stevens are the drivers in Car 65. Whilst this might not be the team to support if you are a vegetarian, this special Le Mans only entry puts the father-son duo of Jan and Kevin Magnussen alongside Anders Fjordbach in an all-Danish lineup for the Danish team. However, that's not the only car high-class racing are entering into this race, as we now get onto the LMP2 ProAm section. For Car 20, Dennis Anderson will be partnered alongside GT regular Marco Sorensen, making his LMP2 debut, and Ricky Taylor. Forget sticking out like a sore thumb, the racing team Nederland Oreca sticks out like a clown in a board meeting. That being said though, this Jumbo-sponsored car will hope to make another good impression in terms of the speed they produce, as Fritz van Aert, Guido van der Garde and Job van Uytert drive Car 29. The second G-Drive entry will be a dark horse in this race to look out for, as Rui Andrade, John Falb and former Manor F1 driver Roberto Mehi drive Car 25. Run by TDS Racing, Real Team are a very strong team of experienced Le Mans racers, with Esteban Garcia teaming up with Loic Duval and the most recent Formula E winner, Norman Nato. Once again, what a way to come off that! In a livery, inspired by famous stuntman Evel Knievel, Dragon Speed will hope that their Le Mans will go without too much drama, as regulars Ben Hanley and Henrik Hedman will be joined by Juan Pablo Montoya, who only needs this race to win the unofficial Motorsports Triple Crown. However, he can't win it this year because he has to win it overall, which might seem a bit of a stretch, unfortunately. The second EDEC Sport entry has had an extremely late driver swap. Ryan Dial and Dwight Merriman were meant to be joined by Carl Tilley, however, Carl is unable to make the race, so in comes Thomas Laron, formerly of the Alpine LMP2 programme. In the car run by Tech 1 Racing and is a team that usually competes in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Series, Patrick Kelly will be joined by co-drivers in the IMSA Series, Gabriel Aubrey and Simon Trummer in the 24 car, which, like the Panis Racing car, is also a Laurent Minguet art car. Despite having competed in the first 3 races of this year's World Endurance Championship, ARC Bratislava's third Le Mans 24 Hours will be slightly different to the rest of the season, as they have changed to an Oreca chassis. Matej Konopka, Miro Konopka and Oliver Webb will hope to learn as much as possible about the Oreca prior to the race. We finally have our first and sadly only non-Oreca in LMP2, as Eurasia yet again stay with the Ligier. As you can tell by the name, Eurasia were partnering up with the newly formed Racing Team India to field an all-Indian entry. However, travel restrictions have meant that was not possible, and so whilst the team has still got the same name, the drivers have changed to Tom Chloe, John Corbett and James Winslow in Car 74. And finally, we have an all-French lineup in a French team. Vincent Capillaire, Arnold Robin and Maxime Robin will drive Car 39, as we now yet again change the background picture and move on to the GTE cars, starting with the Pro class. AF Corsa have been running the Works Ferrari GT program for ages now. This year's World Endurance Championship battle though has been between them and the Porsche GT team. However, the guys at AF Corsa will be hoping to replicate their GTE Pro win in 2019 with either one of their two entries. James Collado, Alessandro Pierguidi and Combe Ledegar will drive the 51 car, whereas 52 has had a slight change. Sam Bird has replaced Davide Rigon due to an injury at the Spa 24 Hours. Of course, we hope he gets well soon. So Miguel Molina and Daniel Serra will join him in the 52 entry. Meanwhile, the Porsche GT team will also come with a wealth of experience. Porsche have won the Le Mans 24 Hours 19 times overall, and the GT program has also been successful, and they'll hope they'll come out on top again with its drivers. Car 91 has Gianmaria Bruni, who was for a long time a member of the AF Corsa Ferrari GT team, Ricard Leitz and Frederick Macavecchi. Whilst the 92 car has Michael Christensen, Kevin Estra and Neil Jarni. Corvette have always been fan favourites at Le Mans, and after not showing up last year, they return in 2021 with the debut of their C8 GTE at Le Mans. Nicky Katzberg, Antonio Garcia and Jordan Taylor will be in the 63 car, whilst Tommy Milner, Alexander Sims and longtime Porsche racer Nick Tandy is in car 64. They will hope to give the popular American team their first GT win at Le Mans since 2015. WeatherTech Racing have been competing in IMSA and the European Le Mans Series competitions all season, and despite having one driver, Cooper McNeil, who is not rated as highly as the other drivers in the field, they decided that they would compete in the Pro category anyway. Whilst in theory it seems like they're already on an uphill struggle, they did win this year's Sebring 12 Hours up against the all-pro lineup of the Corvette and BMW teams. Cooper will be joined by Earl Bamber and Laurens Vanthoor. Hub Auto Racing is the only all-pro privateer entry as they look to try and shock all the manufacturers and take the win. Maxime Martin, Alvaro Parent and Dries Vanthoor will pilot the number 72 Porsche, and yes, Dries is the brother of Laurens in the WeatherTech car. Now though, it's time to change scenery again, and onto the AM class. Iron Lynx is a team that we may hear quite a lot more of in the future as they are expanding at quite a fast pace, recently forming a collaboration with the single-seater Prema team. And they've come off a win in the 24 Hours of Spa. They will enter 3 Ferrari 488s into the race with car 60 driven by Raffaele Gianmaria, Paolo Ruberti and Claudio Schiavone, car 85 having an all-female lineup also known as the Iron Dames with Sarah Bovey, Rahel Frey and Michelle Gatting, and car 80 driven by Matteo Cressoni, Rino Mastronardi and Callum Eilert, a Ferrari F1 test and development driver. Project 1's number 46 Porsche has had somewhat of a merry-go-round in terms of who will be joining Anders Buchart and Dennis Olsen for Le Mans. After Max Root, for whatever reason, couldn't do the race, fellow American Robbie Foley got a very late call-up after ironically a deal with another GTE AM team fell through not too long before this, so he will be competing with the Norwegian duo. Meanwhile, if you like your confectionaries, then you'll like the second Project 1 entry as Matteo Cairoli and Riccardo Pera are joined by Edigio Perfetti, who is a director of Mentos. He'll be hoping to take his Italian teammates on a sweet ride to GTE AM victory like he did in 2019. Terrible joke, I know, but I had to do it, didn't I? AF Corsa are yet again in the box seat for Ferrari with 2 entries, of which both look like they'll be towards the front of the GTE AM category. 54 has Francesco Castellacci, Thomas Fleur and former Grand Prix winner Giancarlo Fisichella, whilst car 83 has Niklas Nielsen, Francois Perodo and Alessio Rivera. Meanwhile, AF Corsa is also doing the technical operations behind the Cetilar Racing entry. Cetilar has for the previous few seasons been running a Dallara in the LMP2 class. However, this year they're in GTE AM with Ferrari test driver Antonio Fuoco, Roberto Lacorte and Giorgio Cernaggiotto. A stalwart of the Le Mans 24 Hours in recent years, Aston Martin are once again back with Paul Dalla behind the wheel, as the Canadian entrepreneur has even made his own film about gentleman drivers. And for this year, he's brought along former factory Aston Martin driver Nicky Thiem with him, back to the team he was originally part of. Brazilian Marcos Gomez will join the pair. Despite being named as an entry for 3 Porsches, Proton are actually providing technical support to 5 Porsches for this year's Le Mans, one for WeatherTech Racing and another which will be shown soon. For the two cars under the Dempsey Proton name, with which the Dempsey is American actor Peter Dempsey, Car 77 is driven by Matt Campbell, Jackson Evans and Christian Reed, competing in his 11th consecutive Le Mans 24 Hours for Porsche. Car 88 will feature Julian Andlauer, Lance David Arnold and Dominique Bastien, who is the oldest competitor this Le Mans 24 Hours, whilst Car 99, the only one under the Just Proton competition banner, has Vutikorn Ilfapuvasak, the Thai driver, being joined by Florian Latour and current Mazda IMSA driver Harry Tinknell. And finally, the fifth Porsche will be under the Absolute Racing banner, which the livery is meant to incorporate all nations and diversity in the form of rubber ducks. Piloting the number 18 Porsche is Andrew Harriento, Alessio Picciarello and Marco Seefried. GR Racing are once again competing in the 24 Hours of Le Mans with Michael Wainwright and Ben Barker, joined by Tom Gamble in the Porsche. Yes, I know what you're thinking, that is a very distinctive looking Ferrari. Either way, the people driving this speck of bright yellow lightning are Scott Andrews, Takeshi Kimura and LMP2 regular Mikkel Jensen. Duncan Cameron and Matt Griffin have become a long-lasting partnership in the GT racing ranks, and this year they'll be taking fellow GT ace and popular sim racing influencer David Perel. JMW have become somewhat of an underdog in their history, but this year they'll be adding even more history to Le Mans' art car portfolio. The car was designed by American artist Cleon Peterson, and the number 66 Ferrari will be driven by Jody Fannin, Thomas Neubauer and Rodrigo Salles, who says he's also an art collector. Maybe that's why he's in an art car. Making its debut at Le Mans, Rinaldi Racing's Ferrari 488 will be driven by Jerome Blake-Molen, Pierre Herré and Christian Hook. The team, which usually runs McLarens in GT racing, have had to run a Ferrari because no McLaren GTE car exists yet. Ben Barnicoat joins the regulars at Inception Racing, Ollie Milroy and Brendan Arieb, who has raced so much this year he's probably driven the diameter of the Earth just by racing. After winning the championship in the GT category of the Asian Le Mans Series this year, Herberth got an automatic entry into the race. However, they have been sizing up between the Porsche or Ferrari. Initially, it was the Porsche, as that's what they compete with in GT3 racing. However, a chassis couldn't be found, so the Ferrari is what it seemed like they were going to be using, until very recently, when a Porsche chassis was available, so Herberth jumped at the opportunity, and that is what they will be running. At the wheel of Car 69 is Ralph Bone, Rolf Einiken, and Robert Renauer. The only multi-car entry in the GT category, fielding multiple Aston Martins, ex-British touring car racer Tom Ferrier and his TF Sport team will be running his European Le Mans Series car, the number 95 driven by Ross Gunn, Ollie Hancock and John Hartshorn, whilst in car 33 we have Felipe Fraga, Dylan Pereira and a great character of endurance racing, the Texan car dealer Ben Keating. TF Sport are also providing technical support to the D-Station Racing Aston of car 777. D-Station are a team that have competed in the Japanese Super GT series with a GT3 Aston Martin. Team owner Satoshi Hoshino and one of his drivers in Super GT, Tomonobu Fuji, will be joined alongside fellow Japaneseman in no way whatsoever, Andrew Watson. We do though have one final entry in the form of an innovative car, also known as Garage 56. This entry, as you can tell from the title, is for a team that doesn't really fit into any class, but is added to the race from a perspective of being new technology, for example. Only once has a Garage 56 entry ever finished, and it was in 2016 with the same team that is fielding this year's entry. Association SRT 41 is fielding an LMP2 spec Orica. However, two of its three drivers are paralysed from the waist down after motorcycle accidents, those two being Nigel Bailly and Takuma Aoki. The other driver was meant to be Francois Perrault, however he was hurt in a fall recently and has had to be replaced by Mathieu Lehay. And needless to say, we wish Francois a speedy recovery and hope he gets to watch the race from the garage. Despite the car mechanically being the same as any other LMP2 car, don't expect the car to be anywhere near the pace of those LMP2s. The main aim, and indeed what we all hope for, is that the car finishes without incident, because already getting to this stage is a remarkable achievement in itself. So, despite this video being a bit longer than I had initially planned, before we do go, you'll probably want to know where and how you can watch this race. In the description, I'll put a link to the World Endurance Championships TV broadcasters so that you will be able to know where to find the race. Other than that though, I hope you enjoyed this video and that you found this, at the very least, informative. If you want to look at the pictures of the cars in far more detail and not heavily cropped like I've done them, then check out the people who did these photos with all the photographers listed below as they're on screen right now. They'll certainly make for fantastic backgrounds of the desktops on your devices. The Le Mans 24 Hours is a spectacular event that puts human and machine through their paces. The field in all the classes looks exceptionally competitive, and without a shadow of a doubt, there'll be drama at many points throughout this race. And whether or not you want to watch the entire 24 hours with no sleep is entirely up to you. However, this video is long enough already, so I'm going to leave it here and say thank you very much for watching, and until the next video, enjoy the rest of your day.